All right, here's the continuation of reading pages 191 to 199. We're at the bottom of page 196. Later, when he returned to the palace, Siddhartha Gautama's mind was troubled by many difficult questions. Must all men suffer? Why are people so unhappy? What can they do about it? The teachings of Hinduism did not answer the questions. Where could he turn for the truth? Siddhartha Gautama could enjoy his princely life no longer. He felt that he could not live in such luxury and ease while others suffered. The prince wanted to solve the problem of suffering, but how could he when he didn't even know what suffering felt like? After much thought, Siddhartha Gautama decided to give up his wealth and family. He resolved to leave the palace. So he took off his fine clothes, dressed in poor rags, and went out into the world to find the truth. Siddhartha Gautama soon met some holy men who were also looking for truth. They said that he should stop thinking of the needs of his body. Hunger, thirst, rest, comfort, pleasure, all of these, said the holy men, must be given no thought or care. Instead, they said, Siddhartha Gautama must think only of his mind and spirit. That, they said, was the way to find truth. Siddhartha Gautama joined these holy men who were ascetics, men who practiced self-denial in order to find a spiritual truth. For 6 years he wandered with the ascetics, wearing only rough clothing made of bark cloth. Some days they ate only a little rice. Other days they ate nothing at all. They lived in the forest or in caves, and they slept on the ground. Siddhartha Gautama tried asceticism. He denied the needs of his body. He tried to think about truth and goodness, but he did not feel any closer to the answer. This way of finding truth didn't seem to be working. When he was cold and weak with hunger, he couldn't think clearly. Surely, he thought, there must be another way to find truth. So Siddhartha Gautama left the ascetics and wandered off alone. Finding a quiet place under a tree, he sat down. He made up his mind to sit there until he found the answer. For days he thought about good and evil, and about life and death. Finally, something happened. He felt his mind open up, and at last he understood the truth about life. He knew his knowledge was like a great light. Siddhartha Gautama felt free from pain and suffering. Because of this experience, he was later called the Buddha, meaning the enlightened one. Page 198. The Buddha goes forth. After his experience of enlightenment, the Buddha went forth to teach his message. Neither the life of extreme pleasure nor the life of extreme asceticism leads to truth, he said. As the Buddha explained, since suffering is caused by desire, we must learn to overcome desire. People suffer because they desire worldly things, such as wealth or power. But no matter how much they get, they will always want more. They will even hurt other people to get more. Then great unhappiness and everlasting desires will follow. The way to free oneself from desire, said the Buddha, is through meditation and compassion. Meditation and compassion, he said, would reveal that the universe and all that is in it is impermanent, passing away like a wisp of smoke or the ripples on the surface of a pond. Once people understood this truth, he said, then they would be free of desire and thus free from suffering. As you can imagine, the Buddha's followers did not immediately understand his words. They were hard to grasp, but the Buddha taught his followers patiently. To help his followers understand his ideas, he used simple stories that emphasized self-restraint and compassion. Some of these tales have been collected and are called Jataka tales. literally meaning accounts of the Buddha's past births. They all tell lessons about how to live a good life based on the Buddha's own deeds and advice in his past lives. Let's read what the Buddha had to say about suffering and death in a Jataka tale called The Mustard Seed. In this story, Shakyamuni, a physician, is the Buddha in a past life. Okay, the mustard seed. A wise and faithful woman named Kesha Gautami had an only son, and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine. Her neighbors shook their heads and said to one another, "She has lost her senses. The boy is dead." At length Kesha Gautami met a man who gave her some hope. "I cannot give you medicine for your child," he said, "but I know a physician who can." "Pray tell me, sir, who is it?" the woman begged. The man replied, "Go to Shakyamuni." Kesha Gautami went to Shakyamuni and cried, "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." The physician answered, "You must bring me a handful of mustard seed." And when the woman in her joy promised to procure it, Shakyamuni said, "The mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend." Poor Kisagatumi now went from house to house. Everywhere she went, people pitied her and offered her mustard seed. But then she would ask, "Has a son or daughter, a father or mother died in your family?" They answered her, "Alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief." In every house someone beloved had died. Kasia Katumi grew weary and hopeless. She sat down at the wayside, watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. At last the darkness of the night reigned everywhere, and she considered the fate of all human beings, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished. And she thought to herself, "How selfish am I in my grief! Death is common to all. Yet in this valley of desolation there is a path to immortality for those who have surrendered all selfishness." Gesha Gotami and the body of her son had the body of her son buried in the forest. Returning to the physician, she took refuge in him and found comfort in his teachings. Shakyamuni said, "The life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. All who are born must eventually die. Such is the nature of living beings. All earthen vessels made by the potter end in being broken, so is the life of mortals, both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. Not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be greater and his body will suffer. People pass away, and their fate after death will be according to their deeds. If a man lives 100 years or even more, he will at last be separated from the company of his relatives, and leave the life of this world. He who seeks peace should pull out the arrow of grief and complaint. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed will obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed." And Kesha Gautami found this teaching a balm to soothe the pain in her troubled heart. That's the end, page 199.